Like, what's the biggest difference between a wedding planner and a wedding designer? Is there a secret
So,
role you like the best, or do you do both?
so there's like three kind of breakdowns that fall like kind of under the planner spectrum. So there's coordinators, planners, and designers. I do all three. Right. So a planner is somebody that is doing all of the logistics. They are making sure that all of the vendors are getting booked, helping with contracts. They're just kind of handling all of the tasks that go along with planning a wedding. And there are planners out there that are strictly planners and they are not designers. A planner who also does design, part of that planning process is they create a design and then they also source all of the vendors for that design. So if you're working with a planner that is strictly a planner and not a designer, typically you will bring in a separate company that does design.
So, welcome to The Right Fit. Today, we are joined by Brittnie, the visionary and founder of Metheny and Co, a premier wedding planning and design firm serving New York, New Jersey, and beyond. She has mastered the art of turning a couple's dream into a tangible reality. And her strong social media presence has made her a go-to resource for brides navigating the planning process. So, Brittnie, let's get right into it. Looking back at your early days in the industry, did you fall in love with the planning side first, or was it the design side that really hooked you?
So I actually got my start in the industry working in coordination specifically. So kind of going even back further before that, I've always felt that there was kind of two sides of my personality. There's like a creative side and then there's a very type A side that, has a need for structure and routine and all of that. And they always kind of butt heads as they do, just kind of when you think about people and like what their professions are, you have people that are artists and they tend to be like a little more relaxed and free spirited and not so structured. And then you have people that work in business and they're like very structured, but they tend to lack all of that creative side. Um, and so I really struggled finding something that was a good blend between the two. And I felt like I actually kind of jumped between jobs a lot that would like fulfill one side or the other and then get really burnt out from it and then go to the other side to like feel that I needed like a little either needed more structure or needed to be able to like have a creative outlet. So when I got into coordination, it was actually just a friend of mine who was working as a wedding coordinator and had said to me, "Oh, I think you would really love this. You'd be really good at it. You're very organized," because I had always planned all of our like vacations with my friends and I had all of our itineraries done and all of that.
Always the one.
Yeah. I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Why don't I give it a go?" And so once I had you book clients like well in advance. I'd been working with them. But once I had my first wedding, I was like, wow, I love this. This is so fun. And I remember my now husband saying to me, I've never seen you smile so much after like working a 12 or 13-hour day. He's like, what's up with you? And I was like, I don't know. It was just such a nice thing to be a part of. And so it definitely I think it was more the type A side that because I was in the coordination side of things, that kind of got me involved. But after being just part of such a special day in so many people's lives, I think that's really what pulled me in more so than anything else. And then the transition from coordination to full service wedding planning was really me finding that like middle ground of, hey, this is actually one profession that can satisfy kind of both sides of my personality in that because obviously as a wedding planner I have to be very structured and make sure that everything's getting done and on top of things, but at the same time there's very much a creative aspect of it and kind of putting together new design for a client that really draws on their personalities or what makes them happy and like just getting to do something different for each client. So like a nice mesh of both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because I see both worlds, even in, what I do with music. The creative side always called me, but then the structural side always called me as well. Some people say it's because of my zodiac sign. I don't know if you guys are into that, but I'm a Virgo. And every time I say I'm a Virgo, they're like, "Oh, it makes sense." You know what I mean? Like, I guess we could have the type A side, whatever that means. But then also, like, I'm so into like creating and going deeper with things and not just kind of, let's call it phoning it in and just kind of doing like the status quo stuff. Like, how do we make things different or unique or whatever? Like, so even like that time that we collaborated, like that was such a fun experience that we had to do or work on something that is not normal. It's like not wasn't an everyday thing. Just to give the viewers or listeners context, we worked on a wedding that first of all was a residential home. So there was already, things that you have to account for that is not a traditional venue. So you're already outside of the box. And then we're trying to bridge different cultures into the mix. And then we're also trying to bring something that's unique from one of the cultures. And it was just like so much going on, but like that makes it so much more fun in the sense of like just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think that
Plus,
it's
plus it
great.
was a wedding that we planned in 2 months.
Oh, I forgot to throw in that
So
curveball.
add that into the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like challenge accepted pretty much in that scenario. So I think that was really cool. And speaking of like now that you're kind of getting more and like the experience when, you started and where you're at with your business, is there something that you feel like a specific wedding or like location or destination that's like really stayed with you? I'm just curious.
So I recently did a wedding in Spain in November of last year, which was really, really fantastic. Just so different from anything that you typically see in the Northeast, like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. So that was really nice to get to do something totally different. And my couple were from New Jersey, but they kind of wanted to lean into the culture over there. And so we hired an American photographer, but obviously all of our other vendors were local to Spain. It was just like a very fun and more relaxed experience. The vendors kind of approach things differently than we do in the United States. And I'm not saying that's better or worse.
Right, right,
It works in Spain. I can tell you it would not work here,
right.
but their clientele is different. And the way people approach their weddings are different. I will say we obviously had some hiccups, kind of like cultural difference hiccups and things like that. My couple in their mind kind of envisioned a typical American wedding in terms of like the format and how the flow of the day goes. And so some of the vendors are over there and we're like, well, that's not how we do things. And I was like, okay, that's great. But it's their wedding.
Right.
So how about we try to make this work? But overall, it was a great experience. And I have always loved traveling. So I'd love to do some more international weddings.
It's on my list. I've done domestic traveling,
Mhm.
but international I have not yet. So that's
I
definitely on
guess
my
it's
list to do.
a bit harder for you because you have all of your equipment.
Yeah, I've gotten inquiries from it. Like literally just in the last couple of weeks, I got one for Riviera Maya. I got another one for Costa Rica. But
It's
then once I started breaking down the logistics of like saying like, hey, I can't like fly with my equipment, it's going to be an extra investment on your end. Obviously that's something for the couples to take in consideration because it is possible. There's a lot of DJs that do it. But once again, from the couple side, like, my pricing is obviously different than being local because I can't just travel with, like a camera, like a photographer. I gotta figure out
yeah,
the equipment with boots on the ground. I can't just fly with it. So I had this
yeah, for
one
sure.
opportunity super close that I almost did in Greece and it ended up not working out. But well, it'll happen. It'll happen when the timing is right. So for now, I've had the
Yeah,
domestic travel ones, Miami, Memphis. Like I've traveled to some cool spots, and it's always like that. Like you said, like
nice.
finding out unique ways of how other people do things, and something that I actually want to bring on the show, that is part of the plan. I'm starting a little bit more in my local radius, but I want to branch out. I want to talk to the person from Spain. I want to talk to the person from, England or whatever, just different places because I know that they do things differently.
Hmm.
Like, and I'm sure that we can all, even though we do things our own way here, I'm sure we can learn something from it and maybe even include it in some way somehow and just kind of make our guest experience here a little different because maybe we learned something somewhere else. I know you mentioned that you were married. And so I don't know if this kind of came before or after, but like, I don't know, were you a planner already? And did this make like your wedding experience easier or you weren't a planner just yet when you got married? Tell me a little bit about that.
I was a planner.
Okay.
And my husband and I actually got married in Costa Rica. So, yes, it helped, but also didn't help because I didn't know any local vendors.
True, true.
So, we did end up hiring, I planned the wedding myself, but I did end up hiring a local wedding planner to kind of assist one with any like language barriers, but also just helping to like source vendors. Costa Rica, I would say the wedding industry over there is like very, very small. There's like three planners,
Wow.
there's 10 photographers, there's one string quartet in the entire country. So having a local wedding planner was nice because she already has relationships with all these vendors. And so that was just really helpful there. But for the most part, I did all of the planning and organizing and then kind of passed it off to her and her team just day of.
Oh, okay. And yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like being a guest at a wedding now for me. It's like hard to be a guest, right? Because like we
It is
see
hard.
things differently, or like it's like we stay seated. I'm like, oh, I can't. Like something's off right now. I need to go tell them. And it's like uh, I always wondered, planning your own wedding, if that was like. And so it sounds like you gave your input, but also were able to maybe take a step back because you did hire some professionals a little
Well,
bit.
that's a whole other story. I struggled. I struggled all day long. Friends and family were like, "Are you okay?" Because I was just sitting there like, "Okay, like I'm trying not to look at my phone, but could somebody tell me what time it is? Like, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing?" It was hard. It's, you know what? It's really hard transitioning from the planner to the guest of honor. We did like a whole wedding weekend. We stayed in an all-inclusive resort, so all of our guests stayed there as well. Every time I left my hotel room, I was running into wedding guests, which is so nice and so great. But also at the same time, it's the day before my wedding and I have so many things on my mind and I couldn't. So for me, it was difficult because I had everyone wanting to spend time with us. And obviously, I want to spend time with all of these people that have come to celebrate with us. But at the
Right.
same time, I'm like, I have a million and one things to think about and I can't talk to you right now.
Right. My mind is somewhere else. It is hard, like when you're trying to be in focus mode. I remember even one time, like it wasn't even my wedding. I was the best man at a wedding. And like I was part of the wedding party. They had the party. Like I didn't drink. I was in the corner practicing my speech the whole time. And they're like, yo, Christian, what's going on? I'm like, I'm sorry. Don't talk to me after my speech is done. I can't, I gotta nail this thing. You know what I mean? I can't give you my attention right now. But it's
Yeah.
hard, when kind of the opposite end of like what a bad best man speech could be like, or what a bad wedding can look like, right? Because we already know all these pitfalls. So we're just like, I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm not trying to be that bride. I'm not trying to, I'm trying to avoid all this. So, oof,
Yeah.
that's tough. But you made it happen. You got married. You're
Yeah.
still here. You're still alive.
Yes. Married successfully.
Nice, nice. And I've always wondered this, and I obviously looking through your stuff, trying to figure out like what's the biggest difference between a wedding planner and a wedding designer? And like is there a secret
So
role you like the best, or do you do both?
So there's like three kind of, I would say, breakdowns that fall like kind of under the planner spectrum. So there's coordinators, planners, and designers. I do all three. Right. So a planner is somebody that is doing all of the logistics. They are making sure that all of the vendors are getting booked, helping with contracts, making sure that payments are going out. They're just kind of handling all of the tasks that go along with planning a wedding. And there are planners out there that are strictly planners and they are not designers. A planner who also does design, part of that planning process is they create a design and then they also source all of the vendors for that design. So if you're working with a planner that is strictly a planner and not a designer, typically you will bring in a separate company that does design. And so that company would then do anything that I would do like for design. So they'd create a design, they'd source all the vendors in order to bring that design to life. And then there's the production side of things, which is like the coordination. So typically a planner also does coordination, even if they don't do design. I'm sure there are some that don't. I've never come across them, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But
Yeah,
typically it's at least planning and coordination. And then the other side of it is planning, design, and coordination. And then there are people that just do coordination.
there's a
Coordination
difference.
side of things is bringing everything to life day of, making sure that all of those plans that you've created are happening and going to plan, making sure like overseeing the design. If it was a
Hmm.
separate designer, then their team would oversee all of the design aspects of things.
Wow. So that was a little bit to digest, but honestly, it's something good to note because, I feel like in our industry, especially now with like obviously people just seeing stuff online, like they read these terms, but don't really understand like what the difference is, right? Like the
Yeah.
planner, the designer, the coordinator. And I mean, I don't want to go like, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole, but like, then there's like the day of, and then people make the joke, there's no such thing as day of because like it takes me at least a month maybe to get to know it, so there's all of these intricacies. And so it's like, I hope that anybody like listening or watching this can kind of understand a little bit, you don't need to fully understand it, but a little bit of like there is a difference. And then, and when you are looking for somebody, are they going to be able to meet those needs versus you thought that they did the design, for example, and maybe that has nothing to do with what they do. Like somebody hired me as a DJ, but then they realized that I don't MC, but they just assume that I MC. But not all DJs
Yeah.
MC, not all MCs DJ. And then now it's like the day of their wedding, they're finding this fun fact out. Like, wait a minute, I thought you were going
Yeah.
to do this thing. you're not doing the thing that I thought I paid you for. So, wow. Do you kind of have that conversation when people book you? I'm guessing. Like, is there's some type of clarity on that right up front?
Yeah. So when I'm kind of describing what my process looks like, I obviously bring up the fact that there's a whole phase in our planning process that is strictly for design. So that makes it pretty obvious that I'm kind of handling that aspect of things as well. But in terms of planners that don't offer design, I don't know. Like, I would hope that they make it clear that they do not,
Yeah.
give input on design, but I'm not sure if they do. And I'm not sure if it's clear for all of the couples out there that are booking planners. But I will say, I think the majority of planners also offer design.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess it's
Interesting.
everybody's sales call is a little bit different. So it's hard to know what other people are doing. But from my side of things, I always make it very clear that design is important to me and my company. If you're not somebody that cares about your design, then maybe we're not the right fit as like a client vendor relationship, because obviously I that's part of the process that I love. And it's great, planning things and keeping things in order, but you could probably find somebody that charges less than I do, that doesn't do design, and they'll give you the same like planning side of things without the extra cost of design that I'm just not going to do for you then.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's sometimes in the investment factor, but it also correlates with the time and energy that you're putting in on your end, because it's like a
Yeah.
whole other task that you have to undertake, not just from like sourcing the people, but like putting it all together. I don't know. Could be a mood board, could be this, could be that. Like, it just, there's a lot that goes into it. And then people just sometimes just send you like a Pinterest thinking like that's the design. But that's, I mean, I'm not a planner or designer, but like I know that it's more than just that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In my layman's way of understanding things. So I've been following you give a lot of great tips, some that have gone viral. One that stands out is the strictness of like the right order of wedding planning, right? So like it's like this is the order that things need to go. So how did you land on that sequence, and like why does it matter so much?
So, how did I land on it? That's a good question. I would say it's probably a little bit of trial and error, but also I did some like education ahead of starting full service wedding planning, just to make sure that I knew all of the bits and pieces that needed to go into it outside of what I had already, had experience in with weddings. But the order of planning is like super, super important. And I'd say that that's something that I run into a lot when I get new clients coming in that have already done a little bit of the planning prior to realizing they need help and bringing on a planner. So a lot of times couples are excited, they get engaged, and then they go look at a venue and they book a venue, and they don't really think about their budget, and they don't really think about their guest count first. And so that's where they end up kind of digging themselves into a hole, or maybe having some like venue regret, because your venue, at least in the Northeast, will 100% be your most expensive cost for your wedding, because in this area your venue includes alcohol and catering and staffing and all of that. Whereas in some other regions of the country, you're booking a venue and it's just an event space and you have to bring all of that in. But up here, for the most part, our venues are kind of like all inclusive. So it's certainly going to be the most expensive part of your wedding costs. And if you haven't fully figured out what your guest count is and what you should be spending on your venue, like what portion of your budget can reasonably go towards the venue, a lot of times people like end up overspending, or they overcommit to a venue that has a minimum head count of 175, but their budget really dictates that they should only be having 125 people. And now
Oof.
they're kind of locked into a contract at minimum 175. So then when they go to book, their photographer and their band or their DJ, they realize they can't have a videographer because they can't afford it. Their flower budget's a lot lower. They can't spend as much on that photographer that they've been following on Instagram for years. So figuring out your budget and your guest count are like two things that really go hand in hand as the number one thing you need to do before you do anything else. And I always say to couples, like, certainly in this area, you get a lot of couples whose parents are contributing towards the wedding. And they're like, well, I don't know how much they're going to give me. And I'm like, you have to find out. We need
Yeah.
to get a real number, because if your parents say, oh, we'll give you a little bit, or like, we'll give you a large number.
Yeah.
And in your mind, you're thinking they're giving you $15,000. But then on the day of your wedding, they give you $2,000. That's a big difference.
Huge. Yeah.
They have to
Yeah.
have those. I mean, like, first things first, they have to figure out what their budget is, have some of those uncomfortable conversations and then figure out their guest count. And they need to make sure that their guest count and their budget align. And if they don't, they have to be willing to either increase their budget if their head count's too high, or decrease their head count if they cannot change their budget, kind of thing. And then from there, you can kind of allocate where budget should go and you can start booking vendors. But a lot of times people put like the cart before the horse.
I honestly didn't understand this concept for a little bit in my earlier years, but then I started naming it venue broke because I'm not the first vendor that they book, right? They usually start with the venue, maybe the photographer, by the time they get to me, it's like, we love you, but like we spend all our money and like we don't
Hmm.
know if we could even put this retainer down or, to
Yeah.
hold a date. And I'm like, well, okay, I get it. But I think, for anybody listening to this, is why it's so important that it seems so like simple, but it's like just you got to start somewhere, and this is the best place to start. And don't, some things, you shouldn't change. Like this doesn't sound like something that should be manipulated or changed. Like you need to start here and then that's it. And that's going to help you figure out the trajectory of the rest of the planning and how this can all work out. Because, being venue broke, I think is a thing, because I've witnessed it. And then also just having to now settle for other things. Like you said, now you started at one guest count, now you have to lower it. You maybe wanted this photographer that you've wanted all your life, and now you realize I can't get that photographer that I wanted all my life.
Hmm.
Or
And that sucks to have to settle on something on your wedding day and for like this event that you are spending so much money on.
yeah,
Like you shouldn't have to settle. So if you set yourself up for success from the beginning, then you won't have those kind of regret moments, hopefully.
hopefully. Or, I'll be honest, confession, and I might have said this out loud before somewhere, but I wasn't a great fan of wedding planners in my early years either. Could be because the tides have changed. There's a new wave of wedding planners that I work with. I honestly love working with wedding planners now, to be honest, because I feel like they make everybody's life easier. Before it was like they were just doing too much. That just didn't make sense. Like, you don't like, this is not even, anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but I think I see so much value in getting a planner, and I understand it might not be in everybody's budget, but like I think it's also something people think is going to cost them more, but essentially I think a planner can help you save more, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because if they build you up for success since the beginning, then you're not going through these like pitfalls that we're talking about of just going in too deep in one section or not balancing the budget properly, versus maybe saying, I could potentially get everything that I want if I do XYZ in this type of order or the other, kind of like we're talking about. So anyway, I
Yeah.
think I see a lot of
I'm glad
value.
you actually brought that up because I feel so passionately about this. Well, first to kind of touch on your, like your experience earlier in the industry. I obviously can't speak to any other planners other than myself, but
Right.
I have heard that quite a lot, that there are a lot of vendors that don't like working with planners. And then I kind of experience that sometimes working with certain vendors that just have no interest in working with me. And I wonder if it is because they've had some sort of bad experience, maybe with somebody who claimed to be really experienced or claimed to be something that they're not, and then just not know what they're doing or not being a team player. But I mean, my approach is we all have the same end goal. It's not my job to do your job for you. You were hired because you're good at what you do, and the client obviously loves your work. My goal as a planner is to assist all of the vendors in being able to do their jobs to the best of their ability because they're not dealing with other minutia, right? Like I'm dealing with all of the moving parts and all of the issues and all of that so that you can do your job. And so ultimately, I'm glad that your experience has changed because really you vendors should want to work with a planner because in theory our job is to make your job easier to do, like so that you don't have to deal with all the silly things and the people coming up to you asking questions and telling you, you even like coming to a venue and being like, I don't know where I'm supposed to set up. In theory, like you should know exactly where you're going because we've already kind of chatted about it. You know where you're headed, you know where to set up. You don't need to ask, the venue coordinator or like anybody like that. So I'm glad that your experience has changed because it should, in theory, be a good experience working with a planner. But
Right.
not everyone is a team player or experienced or knows what they're doing, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's an alignment thing there too. I think that your vendors inevitably end up being, even if it's for that day, you need to be, like you said, a team player, right? It's all like
Yeah.
the same goal. We want the same outcomes. We want this couple to be super happy and leave with taking away the best memories possible. And, when you go in with that mindset, you're gonna more than likely achieve that goal. But then also when you're collaborating with your colleagues, essentially we're all colleagues here. I think it just leaves a better collaborative model mindset versus like people coming in with I don't know, because I've dealt with this with other vendors too, and it's not here to talk junk about other vendors, but like it could even be a photographer or somebody else who's just not playing the team player role. And it's kind of like if
Yeah.
we all just kind of step back and go into our role, think about what is the goal here, and it's just going to be a better experience when we're working the event, and then a better experience obviously for the couples. One thing that always stood out, and I know I've mentioned it. You're the only planner I've ever seen make a special DJ timeline. And to give context to the viewer or the listener here, why was this so cool, and I worked with tons of planners at this point, is because timelines could be very, very detail oriented, which is lovely, right? But does it really apply to the DJ to know that makeup is at 6:30 a.m.? Maybe not. Does it really matter when, they're going to get the breakfast in the room or, cool. I don't know. And now I'm looking at this document that I'm just like overloaded in processing because I'm like, where's my part? Where are my lines, right? Like it's like a script. Like, where are my lines on the script? And then Brittany sends me this thing that it's like, here's your lines on the script. I'm like, wow, amazing. Anyway, so I'm not telling other planners that they need to do this. She's just extra, but it's one thing that stood out to me about you with those little details that really matter. One thing that I did want to chat with you about is, I've seen you've been pouring a lot of love into your social media, and your presence has definitely become stronger. And I feel like that's a strategic approach that you've taken. So has that changed and at all the type of clients who find you or how you work with them? Like, what have you seen with that growth?
I have just started seeing that kind of transition over into getting inquiries. I don't know that it has really translated too much.
Okay.
I mean, you know this being in the industry that you get a ton of like cold leads, people that reach out and they just never respond. Whether it's that they weren't actually ready to be booking anything or you tell them your pricing and then they're like, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah, yeah.
So, I've I would say the past 3 clients that I have booked have said that they found me on social media, but outside of that, majority of my business is word of mouth. I would say, like, outside of these 3 clients, for the past 3 years, I would say 90% of my business is word of mouth.
Amazing. That's great. And those are things
But you
that
have to keep in mind,
keep coming.
I work with a lot less clients than you or, like, other wedding vendors, right? Just because the nature of my job is I'm putting in like 300 to 400 hours with one client. So I can't take on 30 clients a year.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, I do maybe like 15 to 20, like 300, 400. That's way more man hours. And honestly, just to be even so detail oriented and be able to deliver on your job, I think that would be unfair to the couples if you just did too much and then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
something would
I
fall
mean,
through.
that's for sure why I limit the number of clients that I work with because I want to make sure that the service that I'm giving to each of my clients is to the standard that I'm hoping to hold my business to. But probably also one of the reasons why some wedding planners are not quite as looked upon favorably by other vendors. Maybe they're taking on too much work, taking on like, biting off more than they can handle.
I could see that. I was guilty of that at one point in my DJ career when I was just kind of just saying yes to everything as I was building and starting and not really knowing, I guess maybe what direction specifically I wanted to go in. But over the years, I've actually started to also do the same where I'm reducing the amount of events because my goal is to be more intentional and connect with these couples and create like these like experiences that we were able to work on together and things like that, because I feel like it's just also a recipe for longevity versus like that
Mhm.
that burnout that we can feel, not just because we're not fulfilling these sides that we talked about, the type A and the creative side, but also just we're just going and almost
Giving
like
their
becoming
all.
a zombie. Like, if I'm doing a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm just going and going, I'm just like, wait, who's the couple? What
Yeah.
is their name? What am I doing? What music do they want? Like, then that's when, you're just kind of like, "Ugh," not a great overall experience. And that's not what I want to be remembered for either. I'm sure you don't,
Yeah, for sure.
obviously, and kind of minimizing who you're taking. So I feel like wedding planners, designers, coordinators, you guys are a filter of stress, right? You guys are supposed to like filter these things out. But for you as a wedding planner, what do you think gives you the most stress, right? Because you're trying to filter the stress from everybody else. Like, well, now what is the stress look like for you? Because who's I don't
This
think
is
you
a
have a
long
filter.
list. It's a very long list.
Oh boy,
What gives me stress? Clients that don't answer, vendors that don't answer,
I've heard those.
people that change their minds every 5 minutes, vendors that don't listen. And that's fine. Like, I understand everybody has their own workload, but if I've sent you an important email, I'm hoping that you're reading it. And then when I talk to you on the wedding day and I say, hey, blah, 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 and you're not going, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You could tell they didn't do their homework. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like I do my best to like lay it out. I mean, with the DJ timeline, I do my best to lay it out as simply and like as minutia free as possible. So I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hoping that, the vendors I'm working with are, taking a little bit of time to read that or, listen to what it is that we've planned or, we've got going. Biggest stressors. I mean, the
Oh,
list
that's
could
good.
go on and on. Everything, right? Because I'm taking on every stressor on behalf of my clients, the day going late, somebody showing up late or not showing up at all, anything like that. I've had that happen before too.
Wow, you've seen a lot. I'm sure you'll see some more too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the stress filter. I mean, it's your job, but in advocating or maybe passing on a message to future couples, right? Future bride, groom, whatever. Like, what is one thing that you, in your experience, have seen that maybe one of your couples regrets the most after the wedding is over, right? Like it's all said and done, and I feel like this is when reality hits, and that's when the shoulda, woulda, couldas come in. Have you seen or experienced any of that? Maybe they didn't listen to you on something, or maybe something else that they did, the decision that they made that they regretted.
Truthfully, I've had really great clients. So I would say that majority of the time they listen to me and they respect my opinion and they trust me. So I haven't had any major regrets like that. I would say that the thing that I hear the most is we didn't hire you soon enough. Like I wish we had hired you much earlier because then that would have saved us all that stress ahead of time. I'm I put a lot of emphasis on communication. I think it's really important for my couples to be able to tell me how they feel or what they want or what they think. But then I'm also really honest, sometimes brutally honest, my friends and family would say.
Need a little of
But
that.
think I think part of my job is being my husband likes to say this term a lot. I have to manage your expectations. And so because I am okay with being honest and maybe not everyone is, I bring that stuff up to my clients like well in advance. Like if I don't think this is going to work or I don't fully support this decision you're making, I'm going to let you know that any of these things could happen as a repercussion of that. I will do everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't, but ultimately this might affect this or something like that. And so I say that to my clients like from the very beginning. Like the moment they bring up the idea, I will tell them what I think. If I find something later, if I have conversations with other vendors, I'll let them know, actually I was speaking to this vendor and I don't think that's going to work. So these are options. We can either continue that, with that option or we could do this instead kind of thing. And I will say that I have been blessed with really great clients that trust my opinion and trust my expertise and that typically will listen to my best advice. So I haven't had any major hiccups that have come from like clients not listening to my advice,
That's good. Yeah.
which is really nice. And I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm not going to be able to say that forever. I'm certain I will have I'll have a client somewhere down the line that, wants to do something outside of, my best recommendation. And that's absolutely fine. It's their wedding day and I will let them do that. But I will tell them well in advance that I think this, or this might happen. And so just be prepared for it.
I mean, you have to do your part, and I call it the disclaimers. I sometimes I get these wild ideas, and I say, "Hey, look, I bring no egos to this table. I will tell you my professional opinion here, whether you ask for it or not, because I feel like that is part of why the reason why you hired me. But I will do it.
Mhm.
I will do it. But I will kind of give you the scenarios that can occur, and it could be anything as like as simple as like you. I get these TikTok audios that are 20, 30 seconds long that people are like wanting me to make magic out of. And I'm like, hey, look, this is the scenario. This song doesn't exist anywhere. I'm going to have to like rip it. The song quality is not going to be, I give them the breakdown, the disclaimer, so to speak. And then if they want to go for it, cool. And if they want to go the other route where we create some other type of, fun idea to kind of overcome like this whole like I need to do this trend that is like I see everybody else doing, then we could do that too, right? But yeah, I always put the disclaimers out, and that's important that you do the same because that is your, I think a big part of our job is not to be the yes people either. I think a big part of our job is to give our professional insight because we've gone through it, we've seen it, and we're trying to help them avoid these potential mistakes that now when the wedding day is over, they can't do it over again. Hey, let's do this again next weekend. Like just not really how weddings work. It's not one of those rain date type of events.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that comes with experience too. As a wedding vendor has been in the industry longer, I think they're more comfortable giving those opinions. Whereas maybe somebody newer in the industry is a little bit more like, well, I want to make sure that the client likes me and wants to work with me. So I'll
That's
just kind of
true.
like hold back. And that's probably where they learn the most too.
Yeah.
Small mistakes. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes.
100%. Oh my God. All it sounds so cliche, but it's like, it's definitely just those moments that you look back at. It's like part of the growth, part of the modifications that you start making in your business, even like things that you may update in your contract is mistakes.
Hmm.
You're like, oh,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, I'm not going through that one again. Let me make this change or make this update. And if you're not doing these things for any vendors listening, then you need to start paying attention more and start making these modifications as you grow and mature into this business. Whatever it is that you're doing in this business, you will find that you're going to learn some things along the way. And, it's a forever thing. So I've seen you say that, the favorite, one of the favorite parts is the seeing everything come to life, right? And when that moment clicks, like, do you remind yourself to actually be present and feel it? Or does it just kind of wash over because like you're now used to doing this thing? Be
That's a
honest.
great question and probably a really good reminder for me to be present. I would say it's probably hard for me to be present and like fully appreciate it and enjoy it on the wedding day because I do find myself appreciating it more when I see the photos come in and seeing that like photo that I can go back to all the time. So, I mean, I definitely try to appreciate it on the wedding day and I love seeing it all come to life. But I'm also thinking of a million other things at the same time. I want to make sure that while I'm here in the ballroom, making sure that this is all getting set up, what's going on in the hair and makeup room? Are they on track? So, like, there's a million other things running through my brain on the wedding day. And I mean, I'm sure you know this as well. Like, once you're there, you're just like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
So, it is definitely hard to fully appreciate it, and I should try to appreciate it more in person on that day. But yeah, typically I do find myself like so anticipating those photos coming in because I just want like to take an hour and look through them all.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do love is seeing my clients' faces. That's like one moment I never want to miss is like if they do a ballroom reveal or, if there's something like special that they wanted to see or that we've put a lot of time into planning. I love getting to see their reactions to it, which is really, really fun.
That's really cool. You get to kind of witness those things. And I guess the reason I kind of even go that route with like you being present is because obviously it's something that we advocate to our clients sometimes. But it's like, you did all this work, girl. Like you went in on the design and the planning and hours of 400 things later. And all of a sudden it's like, it's all over. Your husband's saying that you're smiling, but like, what are we smiling about here? So it's a reminder that it's like all your hard work and dedication, is like coming to fruition. But, I know it's easier said than done, but yeah, maybe taking a few seconds to reflect as it's happening, because there's nothing like that moment. And I'm guilty of it too, in just life in general, where like, I'm trying to take a step back and just kind of say, okay, Christian, stop thinking about like the next meeting that you have. Start being present in the meeting that you have now. Like it just could be something so simple because we're always, like you said, rapidly going through life and just being in the part of the country that we're from. That's like everyday
Hmm.
life for us. New York, New Jersey. It's
Yeah.
like go go. We need it yesterday. You know what I mean? Like So that's pretty cool. That you're honest with it, and then maybe now you're thinking about it differently. Even if it's 2 seconds, you'll be like, oh, remember when Christian asked me that question? Maybe I need to take
I'll
a
put
look at
it in
this
my
first dance.
timeline.
Yeah, 2 seconds, put it to the millisecond, reflect. Okay, move on. All right, moment's over. How long have you been doing this, would you say, from the time that you were coordinating with somebody else to like the time that you started your business, about give or take, how long would you say?
Specifically in the wedding industry for uh it's 2026, so 7 years, 2019. But I worked in hospitality all through college, and I worked at a conglomerate of bars, and like gastro pubs that hosted a lot of events. So I worked in events and in hospitality. We did one wedding,
Okay, cool.
which is fun, but it was not like our type of wedding. This was in London. It was like in a tiny little pub
Oh,
that was like pretty unique and cool. But yeah, so I've been in the service industry for a very long time. So I think it was like an easy, natural transition for me.
okay. That's cool. And being that you've like gone through this journey of being, in the event industry in one way or another, and then now being where you are today, what do you think your younger self would be saying to like present day Brittany right now? Like how far you've come?
That's a great question. I don't know. My younger self would probably be like, I thought you were going to be a pop star.
What? Finding something new. Oh man, a pop star. What?
Yeah.
Interesting. You're singing? You have
I
what?
wanted to be Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana was everywhere back then. Oh my goodness. So you did you really have dreams of being a pop star for real?
I did my whole
Wow.
life.
That's amazing. Look at that.
But
So
then
many
you grow
layers,
up.
Brittany. Oh my goodness. So many layers here. I mean, one way or another, you were able to fulfill some of these things that you were looking to accomplish. And I'm a firm believer that, where we are today, where we were yesterday, and what we'll be tomorrow is where we need to be. Sometimes we try so hard to control and change and do these things. And I'm not saying that you should not put any effort in your life. We should. But like, I don't know. It seems like you've done a lot of good things for a lot of amazing couples out there, and they needed you, and you were able to also check some boxes off of your personal list as far as being, I want to be type A, but I want to be creative and I want to do all these things. So that's amazing. And I'm learning so much about you, which is also really cool. We're getting to the end of the interview. I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions. And why I say rapid fire is because we don't need to go so deep into the answers, kind of what comes to your mind first. So the first rapid fire question is, what's one detail guests remember most about a wedding?
I think just overall experience, like how everything flows, like there was no waiting, they weren't cold, like they were thought about through the whole experience. The food was good, it was warm. I think just like kind of all of those little guest experience touch points are the things that the guests will remember the most. If your food comes out and it's inedible, they're going to remember that. If they were freezing cold in the rain for your ceremony, like doesn't matter how good everything else is, that's what they're going to remember. So all those little like guest touch points.
Yeah, valid. I agree. I agree with all those. I see that a lot. Sometimes people are, or sometimes even couples are very one-sided in their vision. They want to have this outdoor ceremony in January because they've always wanted to have an outdoor ceremony, but they're not thinking about their guests freezing, and they don't understand that the little tiny heaters on the corners are not going to heat up the whole outdoor space. So I mean, guest
Yeah.
experience is very important. What's one wedding trend that needs to retire?
I think just like overdoing everything, like doing everything for the gram, so to say,
Ah,
like doing it for other people, doing it for the photos, doing it for how it's going to look. Like just make choices that make you happy. Do things that you like, and that will be Instagrammable in itself.
right. Yes, I think we are losing a little authenticity out there because there's so much out there. And like even gave you my little TikTok example where it's like you just see this thing that everybody else is doing. You're like, I need to do the thing, not realizing that maybe it might not age so well, or maybe it just might not make sense for my event because it just doesn't go, or for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure
I think
you even see.
traditions fall into that too, like feeling obligated to do things because that's a tradition or that's what everyone does too.
Right, right. Okay. What, so what would you say is a secret ingredient that makes an event truly unforgettable?
Little details from my perspective, like all of the tiny little things that you put effort into and don't just say, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to notice that. I think that's what makes something like so unique and special. And a good example of this, I am not a Disney adult, but I did go to Disney as an adult
Yes.
for one of my friend's bachelorette parties. And I was in awe of Disney because every single thing had an intention behind it, a thought behind it, and like it was incredible. So obviously from like a wedding planner's perspective, I was like, holy cow. Every single thing they put so much thought and effort into. And all of my friends that I was there with were like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Come on, let's go. And I'm like, no, that garbage can is painted. Like, look at that. And like, there was no bathrooms in the mirror. I mean, there were no mirrors in the bathroom because they didn't want to cause a line. So they put the mirrors out here. And I'm like, "Oh my god, every single thing was, like, so well thought out." And for me, that was, like, incredible. So I'm like, that is what makes your event just, like, truly outstanding is all of those little things, and maybe not everyone gets noticed, and certainly there will be people that don't notice them, but I think those are what make it unique and different and, like, just make the experience totally different from something else.
And I would say I'm not a Disney adult, but I did get engaged there, and I have visited a few times after that as an adult now that I have children. And I have had the same takeaway as a wedding event professional saying, "Wow, like the intentionality here, the detail there, this led me to do that." And it's like everything's connected from like the moment that you walk in to the time
Yeah.
that you leave to like everything to the app that you want you to use, whatever it is that they're doing, it's well thought out. And
Yes.
kind of touching upon the thing that you noticed it, but maybe some other people didn't. I always give the example of when I'm talking to couples, like even if you don't know what's happening, you feel it, right? So if you've been
Yeah.
to a couple of weddings and this one wedding that Brittany did with all these details, and maybe they didn't exactly notice what those details were after the fact, they will feel that something was different about the event. Maybe they can't pinpoint it, but that feeling
Mhm.
lives on. And I think that's what's very important about what we do. It doesn't necessarily need to be identified like a Where's Waldo thing. Like, did you see that little, but you leave away with that feeling like, man, this was different and this was memorable because it was different. Last and final question, which is kind of like the heart of the show here. What makes a client the right fit for you and your business?
I think for me and my business, there's like a couple of aspects. Somebody that is one like adventurous or wants to do something unique and different in terms of design. And then the other one would be somebody that can like fully give us their trust. And I say this to people all the time. I say this on my sales call. If you do not trust me, this will not work. Go find somebody else that you do trust because one, I don't want to work with you if you can't trust me. But two, why would you want to work with a vendor that you don't trust? So trust for me is a huge, huge thing. Like we, especially as the wedding planner, right? I'm going to be working with this client for maybe 2 years, having meetings with them all the time.
Yeah.
If you don't trust me and we can't have a good relationship, this is going to be an awful 2 years. Like you want to have a good relationship with this client. I want it to be easy. I want it to be natural. So trust for me is like a huge, huge thing. And if I feel that the client is maybe hesitant about trusting me, that's something I would definitely either one, try to address and get to the bottom of, or say, listen, like maybe I'm not the right planner for you.
Yeah. I sometimes use the analogy. This is like dating, you know? Do we want to see each
It
other
is.
again? Do we trust each other? Is this, because at the end of the day, you do want that trust in your hands to do your best work, right? Because you need that trust to do what you do best. But also, once again, going back to their overall experience, if they're leading from an trusting angle, they're going to be losing sleep at night over this relationship that they're
Mhm.
in, you know? Are they out doing
And
something?
I am
You know?
too.
Yeah, yeah. What's going on? Not a very I guess you could say pleasant experience. So I think that's amazing that you kind of throw that in there. And for anybody who potentially might want to find you somewhere, where are you most active? Where can they find you? Social media handles? Where's the best place to find Brittany from Metheny and Co? I said that right at the beginning, right? Did I?
Yes, Metheny
Okay.
and Co.
Okay.
Yeah, so email is the best way to reach out to me. My email address is Britt, at methenyandco.com. I'm active on Instagram. My handle is at Metheny and Company. Our website is methenyandco.com. Any of those ways, you can submit a form on our website. You can reach out via Instagram, and our social media manager will respond. Email me directly. That's fine as well. But yeah, you can find me online. I'm there.
Cool. Somewhere, somehow, you'll find her. Brittany, thank you once again for making the time here today. I honestly found out things about you that I did not otherwise know. So that for me is a great takeaway. And once again, for anybody listening to our show today, whether it's a couple planning or another vendor, just figuring out their journey. Hopefully you guys found some value in that. And hopefully you guys will tune in the next time. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Thanks, Christian.